He cut in, his tone crisp, his gaze sharp. If you want to survive in this company, learn to value time. Maya bit her lip, swallowing her embarrassment. You're just nervous, Maya, she told herself. He's your superior, that's all. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just professionalism that made her heart race whenever he was near. Later that afternoon, the break room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the coffee machine. Maya stood there alone, staring into her cup, replaying the countless moments Jin-ho had unknowingly stolen her breath. His rare smiles, his subtle kindness when he thought no one was looking, the way his voice deepened when he spoke in Korean. Her best friend from the office, Yuri, peeked in. You're thinking about him again, aren't you? Maya sighed. I know I shouldn't. He's my boss's son. He barely even notices me. Yuri grinned. Then make him notice you. That night, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She rehearsed her words 100 times in front of the mirror, her heart pounding like a drum. She wasn't naive. She knew the risk. But love, when it blooms quietly, can be the most dangerous kind. The next day, Jin-ho stood in the lobby, surrounded by staff and clients, discussing a project launch. Maya approached nervously, clutching an envelope, a handwritten letter she'd spent all night writing. Mr. Han, she called softly. He turned, eyebrows raised. Yes, Miss Johnson? Maya took a deep breath. I know this isn't the right place or time, but her voice trembled. I need to tell you something before I lose the courage. The murmurs around them grew. Jin-ho frowned. What is this about? Her voice shook. I like you. I've liked you for a long time. I know it's foolish, but my heart. Stop. His tone sliced through her words. The room fell silent. Everyone stared. Miss Johnson, he said coldly. Do you think this is a schoolyard romance? You're an intern here to work, not to chase fantasies. Her eyes widened. I didn't mean to embarrass. You already have. Both of us. His words were low, but sharp enough to pierce through her chest. Please remember your place. Laughter echoed faintly from a few employees. Maya felt her throat tighten as tears pricked her eyes. The letter slipped from her hand, fluttering to the marble floor like a fallen secret. That evening, Maya packed her things in silence. No one stopped her. No one spoke. The city lights blurred behind her as she rode the elevator down each floor, taking her farther from the humiliation, but deeper into heartbreak. She stood outside the building for the last time, the winter wind biting her cheeks. Looking up at the company name engraved in gold, she whispered, One day, I'll come back, but not as the girl who loved you, as the woman you'll regret losing. She turned away, her heels echoing on the pavement, each step a vow. That night, under the Seoul skyline, Maya Johnson disappeared from Jin-ho's world. But fate, cruel, beautiful, and unpredictable, had only begun to write their story. For years, that was how long it had been since Maya Johnson left Seoul, the city that gave her dreams, love, and heartbreak in the same breath. She had returned to New York with nothing but her pride and the faint memory of a man who crushed her self-worth with a single sentence. But pain had a strange way of becoming purposeful. And Maya, once timid, once naive, was no longer that trembling intern who had confessed her heart under the cruel gaze of office gossip. She had become Maya Johnson, the CEO and founder of MJ Cosmetics, one of America's fastest-growing skincare brands. Her name now carried power. Her beauty now reflected strength. Her silence was now her weapon. The elevator doors opened to reveal a panoramic view of Manhattan. Inside the top-floor office, sunlight spilled across glass desks, marble floors, and gold-trimmed frames, a symbol of everything she had built from the ashes. Morning, Miss Johnson. Good morning, Maya. Her employees greeted her with cheerful energy as she walked in wearing a cream blazer, gold hoop earrings, and quiet confidence. Morning, everyone, Maya said, her voice calm yet commanding. Let's make sure the product launch visuals are ready by Friday. And no delay, beauty waits for no one. Her assistant, Lena, followed behind her. You have 3 interviews this week, a board meeting, and a collaboration proposal from Seoul. Maya froze mid-step. Seoul? Yes, a company called Han Group Investments, Lena replied, scrolling through her tablet. They're interested in a joint skincare line. The name Han sent a quick chill through her, but she masked it instantly with a small smile. Forward it to me. I'll take a look later. She walked toward her office window overlooking the skyline. Her reflection stared back sharp, composed, and unrecognizable from the woman she once was. I told myself I'd never look back, she murmured. But life always circles back, doesn't it? That night, as rain pattered softly against her window, Maya's mind drifted back to Seoul, to that moment in the lobby when laughter had echoed after Jin-ho's cruel rejection. His voice still haunted her. You're an intern. Remember your place. The way the envelope fell from her hand. The sting in her chest. The humiliation in front of everyone. She clenched her jaw. That night was the night she learned the difference between weakness and strength, and she swore she'd never give anyone that power again. She pulled out her old silver necklace, the one she had worn that day, and dropped it into her drawer. The old Maya stayed in Seoul, she whispered. The following morning, Lena entered Maya's office holding a beautifully sealed gold envelope. This came by international courier, she said. Maya opened it. The seal read Han Group Investments in gold ink. Inside was polite, professional, and perfectly ironic. Dear Ms. Johnson, Han Group Investments is impressed with your company's global success. We would be honored to partner with MJ Cosmetics on a joint international beauty venture. Please visit our Seoul headquarters to discuss further collaboration. Sincerely, Mr. Han Song-min, Chairman of Han Group Investments. Maya's fingers lingered on the name Han Song-min, not Jin-ho Han. Still, the coincidence felt almost too deliberate. Lena noticed her silence. Should I reply with a polite decline? Maya smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering. No. Accept the invitation. But isn't that the same? Yes, Maya interrupted softly. And that's exactly why I'm going. Her tone was calm, but her eyes held something Lena had never seen before, resolve mixed with vengeance. 3 weeks later, the airplane touched down in Seoul under a curtain of soft clouds. Maya looked out the window, heart steady, not trembling this time. When she stepped into the airport, cameras from business reporters flashed. Is that Maya Johnson, the CEO of MJ Cosmetics? She smiled politely, walking past them in her tailored white coat and high heels. Confidence radiated from her every step. In the car, her driver handed her a business card. You have dinner tomorrow night, Ms. Johnson, with Mr. Han, the chairman. Maya's lips curved. Han Song-min, she repeated. I look forward to meeting him. The restaurant overlooked the shimmering Han River. Soft piano music played as warm candlelight flickered across their table. Mr. Han Song-min, a tall, dignified man in his late 50s, smiled warmly as Maya entered. His silver hair framed a face that carried wisdom and kindness. Ms. Johnson, he said, standing. You are even more impressive in person. My son spoke about you once, years ago, and said you were remarkable. Maya's heart skipped. His son spoke about me? She smiled politely. Thank you, Mr. Han. I've heard many great things about you too. Over dinner, their conversation flowed effortlessly from business to life, from loss to resilience. I lost my wife many years ago, he confessed quietly, staring at his glass. Since then, I buried myself in work. But seeing people like you reminds me strength isn't born from power. It's born from pain. Maya's gaze softened. Pain has a way of teaching us what peace really means. He nodded, impressed. You are wise beyond your years. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt seen. Not for her beauty, not for her fame, but for her soul. After dinner, Maya stepped out into the cold Seoul night, wrapping her coat around herself. The city lights shimmered like memories reborn. A sleek black car pulled up beside her. The door opened, and there he was, Jin-ho Han, the man she once loved, the man who shattered her. His gaze froze the air between them. He looked older, still elegant, still magnetic, but colder, as if time had carved arrogance deeper into him. Maya Johnson, he said, disbelieving his tone. You're here. She turned slightly, her eyes unreadable. Clearly. You're working with my father? Business, she replied simply. Not personal. Jin-ho's jaw tightened. You should stay away. You don't know what you're walking into. Maya smirked faintly. I know exactly what I'm walking into. The difference is I'm not the same woman who walked away 3 years ago. He stared at her, anger flickering behind his calm mask. You came back for revenge, didn't you? She stepped closer, her perfume teasing the space between them. If I did, you'd be the first to know. She gave a polite smile and walked away, leaving him standing in silence, haunted by the ghost he thought he'd buried. Later that night, Maya stood by her hotel window overlooking Seoul's skyline. The same view she once saw with tears in her eyes. Now, she looked at it differently, like a queen reclaiming her throne. She whispered softly, 4 years ago, I left this city broken. But now Seoul will remember my name. The city lights glimmered below like 1,000 witnesses to her rebirth. And somewhere across town, Jin-ho sat in his car, staring out the window, her name echoing in his mind like a storm he couldn't stop. Destiny never announces itself. It arrives quietly, rearranging lives without permission. Maya Johnson thought she was in Seoul for business. But fate had other plans. The city that once broke her was about to make her face the very people she vowed to forget, and the one man whose rejection still lingered like an unhealed scar. The tall glass building of Han Group Investments reflected the morning sun. Its polished surface gleamed like the pride of an empire. Inside, tension hummed through the air as staff prepared for an important partnership meeting. In the center of the commotion, Jin-ho Han adjusted his tie, his expression unreadable. His father had called an emergency meeting but hadn't said why. Mr. Han, his secretary whispered, your father's special guest has arrived. He nodded, stepping toward the conference room, unaware of who awaited him on the other side of the door. Inside the room, Maya Johnson stood near the window, her black tailored suit cutting a perfect silhouette against the Seoul skyline. She turned slightly as the door opened, and there he was. Jin-ho Han, the same man who had crushed her years ago, now staring at her as if he'd seen a ghost from a dream he couldn't escape. His breath caught. You, she smiled politely. Mr. Han. Her voice was calm, elegant, and coldly distant. The tone of a woman who had nothing left to prove. Before he could reply, Chairman Han Song-min entered, his warm voice filling the room. Ah, you two have met before, haven't you? He said, completely unaware of the history between them. Jin-ho, this is Ms. Maya Johnson, our new international partner from MJ Cosmetics. Maya extended her hand. It's a pleasure to meet you again, Mr. Han. Jin-ho hesitated for a split second before taking it. Her touch was steady, confident, a reminder that the shy intern he once humiliated was long gone. The meeting began. Charts, proposals, and marketing plans filled the screen, but Jin-ho could barely focus. Maya commanded the room with elegance, her voice low, persuasive, her ideas revolutionary. She moved with confidence, her presence magnetic. Even the senior executives couldn't help but be drawn to her. Chairman Han beamed with admiration. Ms. Johnson, your vision is extraordinary. I can see why your company is thriving. Thank you, Chairman Han, Maya replied, glancing briefly at Jin-ho. Success is simply the product of learning from past mistakes. The subtle jab didn't go unnoticed. Jin-ho's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. When the meeting ended, applause filled the room. As everyone left, Chairman Han turned to Maya. Would you join me for lunch, Ms. Johnson? I'd love to discuss this partnership further. Of course, she said warmly. As they walked out together, Jin-ho watched a mix of irritation and disbelief burning in his chest. The restaurant overlooked the Han River once again. Chairman Han ordered traditional dishes, his tone gentle, his eyes kind. You're a remarkable woman, Ms. Johnson, he said between sips of tea. Strong, intelligent, yet humble is a rare combination. Maya smiled softly. I've had to be all three to survive. He nodded thoughtfully. I see pain in your eyes, the kind that comes from betrayal. Her expression faltered for a second. Then she regained her composure. We all have our stories, Chairman Han. Some just learn to turn their pain into purpose. He studied her for a long moment. I like that. Their conversation flowed easily, touching on work, travel, and philosophy. When the lunch ended, he offered to drive her back to her hotel. On the way, they laughed about cultural differences and business quirks. For the first time in years, Maya felt something warm and genuine. Not romance, not yet but respect. From across the restaurant, Jin-ho had seen it all. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had told himself he didn't care. But when he saw Maya laughing with his father, her smile bright and effortless, something inside him twisted. He remembered the trembling intern he once dismissed, and now she was sitting across from his father like an equal. That night, he poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the city lights. Why does it bother me? He wondered. She's just an old mistake. So why can't I stop thinking about her? He replayed her confident tone, her icy calm, the way she said, "Pleasure to meet you again." And he realized with an ache he couldn't admit he'd never truly forgotten her. The following day, Maya arrived at her hotel lobby to find a bouquet of white lilies waiting for her. The note read, "For the woman who turned her scars into strength. Song-min Han." She smiled faintly, touched by the gesture. "He's kind," she murmured. But deep down, she knew that kindness would complicate everything, because Jin-ho's father was beginning to admire her and fate was setting its cruel stage. Later that evening, as Maya returned from a business dinner, she found Jin-ho waiting near the hotel entrance. "You're having lunch with my father now?" he asked, voice tight. She didn't even flinch. "Business, Mr. Han. You remember what that is, don't you?" He stepped closer, his jaw set. "Don't play games with my family." Maya met his glare head-on. "Funny. 3 years ago, you didn't consider me worth your time. Now you're suddenly protective." His eyes darkened. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." Her tone softened, dangerously. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing." She brushed past him, leaving him standing in the cold, and for the first time, Jin-ho realized the woman he once rejected was no longer beneath him. She was beyond his reach. That night, as Maya stood on her hotel balcony overlooking the glittering city, she whispered, "I came back for business, but maybe fate wants something else." And across town, Chairman Han sat in his study, looking at the same skyline, thinking of the woman whose strength fascinated him. The city of Seoul shimmered beneath a golden sunset, the skyline painted in hues of amber and rose. From the 30th floor of the Han mansion, laughter and classical music poured through the grand windows, echoing into the night. It was a night of prestige, the Han Group's annual investors' banquet, where the most powerful gathered to toast to success. Inside, crystal chandeliers sparkled like captured stars, and the air smelled faintly of roses and champagne. The servers glided between tables, their trays heavy with silver platters and fine wine. It was elegance at its peak, a world Maya once only observed from a distance. But tonight, she didn't belong in the background. She was the moment. Maya entered the ballroom in a flowing black gown that shimmered with subtle sequins, her every movement graceful yet commanding. Her hair fell in soft curls down her shoulders, framing a face that carried the poise of a woman who had walked through heartbreak and built her empire from its ashes. As she walked beside Mr. Han, conversations paused. Heads turned. Whispers floated through the crowd. "Who is she?" "She's beautiful. That's Maya Thompson, the owner of Naya Beauty. She's making waves internationally." Mr. Han, dignified and warm, looked at her with quiet admiration. "You see, Miss Maya," he said gently, "this is why I wanted you here tonight. The world needs to see what true resilience looks like." Maya smiled, gracious yet distant. "Thank you, Mr. Han. Your faith in me means more than you know." But deep inside, her heart trembled. She hadn't expected to feel so exposed, not from the attention of the wealthy or powerful, but from the shadows of the past she thought she'd buried. Halfway across the room, Jin-ho stood beside a group of young executives, listening absently to a conversation about the company's new expansion. He looked the part of success, Tailored black tuxedo, calm composure, a glass of champagne swirling in his hand. But his mind wasn't on business tonight. He had only returned from the States a week ago, after years of managing one of the Han Group's overseas branches. Everything had changed since he left except for the quiet ache that sometimes lingered when he thought about her. That in turn, that woman who had once stood before him, confessing love he didn't think he deserved. He had rejected her, humiliated her even, and though time had dulled the memory, it never erased it. Then his father's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the woman whose brilliance has reminded me that passion and innovation still live in this world, Miss Maya Thompson." Jin-ho's breath caught midair. Maya? The name hit him like a blow. The crowd parted, and there she was radiant, poised, walking toward the stage with the same confidence that had once been innocent. For a heartbeat the world stopped moving. Their eyes met and the air shifted. Jin-ho's fingers tightened around his glass. Her gaze was cool, unreadable, but behind it, he caught a flicker of a memory, perhaps of the girl who once loved him without hesitation. Maya, however, didn't flinch. She stood tall beside Mr. Han as they spoke about their partnership, her voice calm, her tone professional. The applause that followed felt distant to her because she could feel him watching her from across the room. Later that night, the banquet faded into a blur of champagne and laughter. Maya stepped out onto the terrace for air, the city lights glittering below. The night breeze brushed against her skin, cooling the storm inside her chest. Behind her, a familiar voice broke the silence. "Maya!" She froze. Slowly, she turned. Jin-ho stood a few feet away, his expression caught between shock and something deeper regret. Maybe. He looked older, more composed, but his eyes held the same intensity that once drew her in. "It's been a long time," she said softly, her tone neutral. "Too long," he replied, stepping closer. "You changed." Maya gave a small, tight smile. People do that when they're hurt deeply enough. The words cut him like glass. He wanted to say he was sorry, to tell her how often he'd thought of her, how the memory of her confession still haunted him. But the words tangled in his throat. He had no right to speak to them. "Maya," before he could finish, Mr. Han appeared at the doorway, smiling. "Ah, there you are. I've been looking for you both." His tone was warm, oblivious to the tension. "Maya, would you join me for a moment? There's someone I'd like you to meet before you leave." Maya nodded, offering Jin-ho one last look, calm, cold, final. Then she walked away, her heels clicking softly against the marble. Jin-ho's eyes followed her until she disappeared. His chest ached in a way he couldn't explain. An hour later, outside the mansion, Mr. Han personally escorted Maya to her car. His charm was gentle, not forceful, the kind of man who spoke through kindness, not power. "You made quite the impression tonight," he said, opening the car door for her. Maya smiled faintly. "I didn't plan to," he chuckled. "That's what makes it genuine. I'd like to see you again, Maya. Maybe dinner sometime, no business. Just two people getting to know each other." She hesitated. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel seen for her achievements, but for her heart. Something about Mr. Han's sincerity disarmed her defenses. After a brief pause, she nodded. "I'd like that." He smiled. "Then it's a promise." As her car drove off, Mr. Han stood watching with quiet admiration. But from the mansion balcony above, Jin-ho watched too, his jaw tight, his chest burning. He didn't know whether it was guilt, jealousy, or both. All he knew was that fate had played its cruelest card yet. The woman he once rejected had just stepped into his father's life and perhaps into his father's heart. Seoul shimmered that evening beneath a silver drizzle, its skyline reflected on the rain-slicked streets like a dream half awake. Inside the private dining hall of the prestigious Blue Orchid Tower, Maya sat across from Mr. Han at a candlelit table overlooking the city. It had been nearly 6 months since she'd returned to Korea. 6 months of rebuilding bridges, sealing contracts, and unknowingly weaving herself into the life of the man who had once been only a business partner. Now he has become something more. Mr. Han had a quiet strength that comforted her. He was a man of wisdom and warmth, his laughter calm and unforced, his presence steady. With him, she didn't have to fight to be seen. She simply was. He spoke with the gentleness of a man who had learned the cost of loneliness. "You remind me of my late wife," he said one evening. "Not because you look alike, but because you carry light even when you've walked through darkness." Maya smiled faintly, lowering her gaze. "That's kind of you to say, Mr. Han. But I'm no light, just a survivor trying to make something of the ashes." "Then you're both," he said softly. "A survivor and a light. That's what makes you extraordinary." It was that simple kindness and the sincerity in his words that slowly began to melt the frost around her heart. But not everyone saw the beauty of their connection. Across the city, at the Han Group headquarters, Jin-ho sat behind his office desk, reviewing documents that refused to hold his attention. Every page blurred into one image: Maya. He had tried to ignore it, tried to convince himself that what happened years ago no longer mattered. But seeing her again laughing beside his father changed everything. It was more than guilt now. It was jealousy. It was longing for the kind that ate at him quietly until he couldn't think straight. "She's different now," he murmured to himself. "Stronger, colder." He leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. The truth hurt. He had taught her to guard her heart. And now, that same wall stood between them, protecting her from him. Days later, Maya was invited to Mr. Han's private villa just outside Seoul. The villa sat on a hill surrounded by cherry blossoms, their petals dancing softly in the breeze. She arrived wearing a pale cream dress that moved like silk rain, her curls pinned loosely, her elegance effortless. Mr. Han greeted her at the gate himself, smiling with that warm fatherly charm that had made her feel safe from the very beginning. "Thank you for coming," he said, offering his arm. "How could I refuse?" she replied with a soft chuckle. Inside, the villa was quiet except for the sound of rain tapping gently on the glass roof. They dined beneath soft lighting, talking about life, art, and the lessons of loss. For a brief moment, Maya felt at peace, as if she could finally let go of the past and start over. But just as dessert arrived, Mr. Han grew uncharacteristically quiet. He watched her for a long moment before speaking. "May I ask you something?" She smiled, unaware of the storm gathering behind his calm tone. "Of course." He took a breath, his eyes filled with sincerity and something deeper. "You've brought color back into my life," he said. "After my wife passed, I thought I would never feel joy again. But with you I've learned to laugh, to hope. You remind me what it means to live." Her hand froze midway as she lifted her glass. "Mr. Han." He reached into his pocket. A small velvet box rested in his hand. "I know this may seem sudden," he continued gently, "but life is too short for hesitation. Maya Thompson, will you marry me?" The air left her lungs. The candle flickered. Time seemed to still. Maya's heart pounded so loud she could barely hear the rain anymore. Her lips parted but no words came. She stared at the ring, elegant, timeless, glowing faintly under the soft light. It wasn't the diamond that made her tremble. It was the sincerity in his eyes, the kind of love she had begged for once, from someone who never gave it. Now here it was freely offered. But her heart refused to cooperate. Her mind flashed with the memory of that night, standing in front of Jin-ho, tears streaming down her face as he said coldly, "You mean nothing to me." The humiliation, the ache, the years she spent rebuilding herself just to feel worthy again, all of it came crashing back. And then she saw that Mr. Han is kind, gentle, and waiting patiently. This man didn't break her. He helped her stand again. He saw her as a woman, not a mistake. She took a shaky breath. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll marry you." Mr. Han's face softened with joy. He slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. "You've made me the happiest man alive," he said, voice thick with emotion. But across the garden, behind a row of rain-wet cherry blossoms, Jin-ho stood frozen. He had come home early to speak with his father about a project, only to find himself witnessing the moment that shattered his composure completely. His father on one knee. "Maya said yes." He couldn't breathe. He stumbled back a few steps, gripping the wall for balance as his chest tightened with a painful mix of disbelief and anger. "No," he whispered, rain mixing with the tears he refused to acknowledge. "She can't marry him. Not my father." That night, Maya lay awake in her hotel suite, staring at the ring on her finger. It gleamed like a promise, one she wasn't sure she deserved. "Father asked me to bring you the documents for the charity gala next week." She nodded without turning around. "You could have left them with Mrs. Kong." "I wanted to see you," he said before he could stop himself. Maya froze. Her heartbeat stumbled. Slowly, she turned to face him. "What do you want from me, Jin-ho?" His eyes darkened. "I don't know. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe something I shouldn't want anymore." She stepped back. "You need to stop this. Whatever this is, it's wrong." "I'm my stepmother?" He cut in, voice sharp with emotion. "Do you really think that changes how I feel?" Her breath caught. "It should." He stepped closer, each movement measured, dangerous. "I tried to forget you, Maya. I told myself you were just a phase. But every time I see you walk past me, every time I hear you laugh with him." He shook his head, voice breaking. "It kills me." Maya's throat tightened. "You think it's easy for me? You think I don't feel anything?" Their eyes locked, two people drowning in everything they couldn't say. Jin-ho's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then why are you shaking?" Maya's composure cracked. She turned away, tears threatening to spill. "Because you make me remember what I'm trying to forget." He reached out instinctively, fingers brushing her arm, gentle, desperate. The touch sent a jolt through both of them. "Don't," she whispered, but she didn't move away. "Maya." Her name fell from his lips like a confession. For a moment the world seemed to stop, the rain, the air, even time itself. All that existed was the thundering of two hearts and the invisible line neither dared to cross. Then, she stepped back suddenly, breaking the spell. "We can't do this," she said, voice trembling. "You're your father's son. I'm his wife. This whatever we had, it has to end here." She turned toward the door, but Jin-ho's voice stopped her. "Then tell me you don't love me." She froze. The words cut through her like lightning. "Tell me," he repeated, stepping closer, his tone soft but burning. "Tell me you feel nothing, and I'll never come near you again." Silence. Maya's chest rose and fell. Her lips parted but no words came. Because she couldn't. The truth was too heavy to speak. Jin-ho saw the answer in her eyes, raw, unspoken, trembling with pain. He smiled bitterly. "That's what I thought." And then he left. The door closed behind him, leaving Maya standing in the quiet storm of her own emotions. When the tears finally fell, they weren't from guilt alone but from longing. From a love that refused to die even when it should. That night, she lay in bed unable to sleep. The rain outside grew stronger, thunder rolling across the sky. She turned, staring at the empty space beside her. The space that should have brought comfort, but only reminded her of what she'd lost. Down the hall, Jin-ho sat in his dark room, drenched in his own thoughts. He had tried to be strong, tried to bury what he felt, but every second under the same roof with her was a punishment he couldn't escape. He poured himself a drink, whispering into the darkness. "Why does loving you have to hurt this much?" The mansion no longer felt like a home. It had become a quiet battlefield where words were sharp weapons, and glances carried the weight of secrets. Maya tried to pretend everything was fine. She smiled at breakfast, hosted charity meetings, and held Mr. Han's hand when the cameras flashed. But behind closed doors, her heart trembled every time Jin-ho walked past her. He had been distant since that night, cold, silent, almost cruel. He avoided her gaze during family dinners, left rooms when she entered, and buried himself in work. But silence can be more dangerous than words. Because silence meant everything they couldn't say was growing like fire under glass. That Friday evening, Mr. Han returned from a business trip. He looked exhausted but happy to be home. "Maya, my love," he said warmly, placing a soft kiss on her cheek. "I missed you." She forced a smile. "I missed you too." Across the dining table, Jin-ho's jaw tightened. He focused on his food, his grip on the fork so tight his knuckles turned white. Mr. Han chuckled. You two seem quieter than usual. Did something happen while I was away? No, Maya said quickly. Everything's fine. Jin-ho didn't look up. Everything's perfect, father. His tone was flat polite, but edged with bitterness. Mr. Han's eyes flicked between them, suspicion slowly forming behind his calm smile. Later that night, Maya stood in the hallway, her hand resting on the balcony rail. The moonlight bathed the house in silver, peaceful and haunting. Then she heard footsteps. Jin-ho again. He was returning from the study, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He stopped when he saw her, his expression unreadable. You should get some rest, she said softly. He shrugged. Can't sleep. There was a pause, heavy and familiar. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Maya asked, turning to face him. Like what? Like you hate me for something we both feel. He set his glass down on the railing, stepping closer. Maybe I do. Maybe I hate that I can't stop thinking about you. That every time he touches you, it feels like I'm losing my mind. Jin-ho, he interrupted, his voice trembling. You think I don't see how you look at me when no one's watching? You think I haven't noticed? Her heart raced. Stop, please. But he didn't. He stepped closer until there was barely an inch between them. Tell me you don't want me. Before she could speak, a sharp voice cut through the night. What the hell is going on here? Both of them froze. Mr. Han stood at the end of the hallway, eyes wide, betrayal written across his face. The world seemed to tilt. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Jin-ho stepped back instantly, guilt flooding his face. Father, this isn't. Don't, Mr. Han said, his tone cold and controlled, though his eyes blazed with rage. I'm not blind. He turned to Maya, his voice breaking. You of all people. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. It's not what you think. What do I think? He said, voice rising. I took you into my life. I gave you everything, Maya. And he pointed at Jin-ho. You betrayed your own blood. Jin-ho tried to speak, but his father's anger drowned him out. Get out. Both of you. The words struck like thunder. Mr. Han, please. Maya stepped forward, but he turned away. His shoulders trembled, his voice quiet but firm. I can't look at either of you right now. Leave. Maya fled to her room, tears spilling freely. Jin-ho followed her halfway but stopped at the door. For the first time, he realized how far they had fallen and how love had turned into destruction. He whispered, voice shaking, I never meant to hurt him. Maya turned, her eyes red and full of pain. But we did. She sank to the floor, clutching the ring on her finger. The ring that once promised peace, now burning against her skin like guilt. From somewhere down the hall, Mr. Han's voice echoed faintly, speaking to no one. I gave my heart to the wrong people. The next morning, the mansion was quiet again, but this time, it was the silence of something broken beyond repair. Mr. Han had left early. His note on the table was short. I need time. Don't contact me. Maya sat by the window, numb, staring at the gray sky. Jin-ho stood in the doorway, eyes hollow. So this is it, he said softly. Maya didn't turn. It was always going to end this way. He walked closer, his voice low. Maybe not. She looked up at him, tears glistening. There's nothing left, Jin-ho. We crossed a line we can't cross. He hesitated, then whispered, I'd cross it again for you. She closed her eyes, her heart breaking all over again. Because love, forbidden or not, was the only thing still keeping her alive. The mansion was silent the next morning. The kind of silence that follows after a storm destroys everything in its path. The servants whispered among themselves, eyes full of confusion. Mr. Han's luggage was gone. His phone turned off. His driver said he left in the middle of the night without a word. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her wedding ring. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her heart numb. Every second since last night has replayed in her head Mr. Han's voice, trembling with anger and betrayal, echoing over and over. She had lost everything. His trust, his respect, his love, and worst of all herself. Downstairs, Jin-ho stood by the piano, the morning light slicing through the curtains and catching the dark circles beneath his eyes. He hadn't slept. When Maya walked in, their eyes met, but neither spoke. The weight between them was unbearable. Finally, Maya broke the silence. He left. Jin-ho's throat tightened. I know. I tried calling, but he won't answer. She looked at him, her voice cracking. He's gone, Jin-ho. And it's because of us. He took a slow breath. Then we'll find him. We'll fix this. She shook her head bitterly. You can't fix betrayal with promises. He stepped closer, his voice firm. You think I don't feel the guilt too? You think I wanted this? I'd give anything to undo what happened. Then why did you come to me that night? She snapped, tears spilling again. Why did you make me remember everything I was trying to forget? Her voice broke, raw with emotion. Jin-ho lowered his gaze. Because I never stopped loving you. Her heart twisted painfully. And that love destroyed the only good man either of us ever had. Hours later, the rain began again. Relentless, cold, merciless. Maya packed her bags quietly, the sound of zippers and rustling clothes filling the emptiness. Jin-ho entered, panic flashing in his eyes. What are you doing? I'm leaving. He stepped forward quickly. You can't just walk away. I have to. She turned to him, her voice shaking. Your father deserves peace. And I can't give that to him while I'm here. Maya, please. She raised her hand, stopping him. We broke something sacred, Jin-ho. And if I stay, it'll only keep bleeding. Tears filled his eyes, but his pride refused to let them fall. So that's it? You're just going to disappear. She smiled sadly. No, Jin-ho. This time I'm going to let fate decide. She placed her wedding ring on the dresser, the diamond catching a faint glint of light before rolling to a stop. When she turned to leave, Jin-ho caught her wrist. His voice trembled. If you walk out that door, you'll never see me again. Maya met his gaze, those same eyes that had once rejected her, then burned for her. Maybe that's what we both need, she whispered, and then she pulled free. Outside, the rain soaked her hair and clothes, but she didn't care. Every step away from that house felt like walking through pieces of her broken heart. Jin-ho watched from the balcony above, his hand pressed against the glass. He wanted to run after her to beg her to stay, but he couldn't, because he knew she was right. Sometimes, love wasn't enough. Days turned into weeks. Neither heard from Mr. Han. Rumors spread that he had gone abroad, that he'd fallen ill, that he was filing for divorce. Maya lived quietly in a small apartment in Busan, working at a local art studio, trying to rebuild her life piece by piece. But every time she painted, her brush trembled, because every shade of color reminded her of him, of both of them. One evening, as she locked up the studio, her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. He's in the hospital. Come quickly. Her heart stopped. Her hands shook as she read it again. Mr. Han. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and ran into the rain. The city lights blurred past as Maya's taxi raced through the Seoul night. Rain streaked the windows, her reflection faintly visible, pale, trembling, lost. Her heart hammered with fear. Mr. Han. The man who had once loved her selflessly. The man she had betrayed. The man who now lay between life and death. Tears burned her eyes as she clutched her phone tightly. The message replayed in her mind. He's in the hospital. Come quickly. She didn't even know who sent it, only that her heart told her she had to go. The hospital was quiet when she arrived, a silence heavy with grief and urgency. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Nurses moved briskly through the halls, their footsteps echoing on the white tile floor. Maya stopped at the reception, her voice breaking. Han Sung-min. Where is he? The nurse checked the chart, then pointed. Room 507. Maya thanked her and ran. Her heels clicked against the floor, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. When she reached the door, she hesitated. Her hands trembled on the handle. Then she pushed it open. The room smelled of antiseptic and rain. Machines beeped softly beside the bed. And there lying still beneath white sheets was Mr. Han. He looked fragile. The man who once stood with strength and confidence now seemed small, swallowed by wires and silence. Beside him sat Jin-ho, his face pale and exhausted. His hands gripped his father's, his eyes red from tears. When he looked up and saw Maya, something inside him broke all over again. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice low, tight. "I got a message," she whispered. "I had to see him." Jin-ho stood slowly, his expression torn between anger and pain. "You shouldn't be here." Maya took a step closer. "Please let me see him." He hesitated, then stepped aside. She moved to the bedside, her heart shattering at the sight. She brushed her trembling fingers against Mr. Han's hand. It was cold, lifeless. "Mr. Han," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry." Her tears fell freely, landing softly on the white sheets. "I never meant to hurt you. You were the only person who really saw me. I thought marrying you would heal the parts of me that were broken. But instead, I broke you too." Jin-ho turned away, his chest tightening. Maya continued, voice quivering. "If you can hear me, please know I loved you. Not the way you deserved, but in the only way I could." For a moment, the only sound in the room was the rhythmic beep of the monitor. Then faintly Mr. Han's fingers twitched. Maya gasped. He moved. Jin-ho rushed forward, gripping his father's other hand. "Appa, can you hear us?" Mr. Han's eyes fluttered open, weak, glassy. His lips parted slightly. Both of them froze. He looked between them, the faintest trace of sorrow in his expression. "You both look broken." "Appa, don't speak," Jin-ho said quickly. "You need to rest." But Mr. Han shook his head faintly. "No, I need to finish what I started." He turned to Maya, his voice soft and fragile. "I loved you, even when I knew you could never love me the same way." Maya's tears streamed uncontrollably. "I did love you, maybe not perfectly, but truly." Then he looked at his son. "And you? Jin-ho, you're my greatest pride, but also my deepest wound." Jin-ho's voice cracked. "Appa, please. You think love is about possession," Mr. Han whispered. "But real love is sacrifice. It's letting go before it destroys everything." His breathing grew shallow. "Promise me," he said weakly, looking at both of them. "Promise me you'll live apart." Maya sobbed. "Please don't." Mr. Han smiled faintly. "Let this be my last wish. Let this pain end with me." The heart monitor beeped faster than slower. A sharp, flat tone filled the room. "No!" Maya screamed. Jin-ho called for the doctors, his hands trembling as nurses rushed in. They tried compressions, shocks, desperate pleas, but it was too late. Mr. Han was gone. The world around them blurred into chaos. Nurses moving, machines silenced, whispers of condolences. Maya stood frozen, her tears falling silently. Jin-ho collapsed into the chair, his shoulders shaking. The man who had held them both together was gone, and all that remained was guilt. Maya stepped closer, placing a hand on Jin-ho's shoulder. He flinched, then slowly looked up, eyes hollow. "This is our fault," he said quietly. "No," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "This is fate's punishment." They stood in silence, the rain falling outside the window, the same rain that once brought them together now washing away everything they had left. Days later, the funeral was small and private. Maya stood apart, dressed in black, watching as the casket was lowered into the earth. Jin-ho stood opposite her, expression empty. When everyone else had left, he approached her. "I'm leaving for London," he said softly. "Father's company needs someone to manage the transition." She nodded. "It's better that way." He looked at her for a long moment, the wind blowing gently, carrying the scent of wet soil and lilies. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Maya met his eyes, her voice breaking. "Every day. But I'll never forget it either." He gave a faint, sad smile. "Goodbye, Maya." And then he walked away, his figure fading into the misty gray sky. Maya stood alone before the grave, whispering softly, "Goodbye, Mr. Han, and goodbye, Jin-ho." The wind brushed against her hair as if carrying a final blessing. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time, she didn't wipe them away. Because this was the end of love, of guilt, of the story fate had written for them all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more updates. You can drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from.